While the Nintendo Direct didn't exactly bring us what we were hoping for in terms of Splatoon 3 information, it did still yield something Splatoon 3 related. Salmon Run is making its return, which to me is actually pretty interesting to see. I had been theorizing, along with a few friends of mine, that Salmon Run is actually what fuels the events of the third game, and thus Salmon Run wouldn't be here, as the story may have been played into Salmon Run being secretly a bad thing. But that was just an idea we had. Anyway, let's get into the info that was actually shown in the Direct. The first change we see is actually in the HUD itself, which has been slightly changed but keeping a lot of the same elements of the Splatoon 2 HUD. One thing I noticed immediately is the special gauge, which now has little segments in it as opposed to it being a bar that fills up. We see a lot more of the returning salmonids and the bosses from the previous game, and then it slowly shifts into introducing a new boss salmon, the fish stick. A giant pole that pierces the ground with salmonids flying alongside it. It seems the goal of dealing with this boss is to scale that pole and take out the small salmonids. It seems that their only attack is to rain down on the player, but my guess is that that's not the only thing they'll do. It may just progressively get faster and faster over time, and maybe the ink will start to spread farther and farther from the pole. Next we get to see another new boss, the Flipper Flopper. This boss throws out a ring of ink onto the ground, then proceeds to jump at it. The circle seems to indicate the area in which you're guaranteed to be killed by it, but if the ink is to be covered, then the flipper is no longer able to eat you, and instead just hops around helplessly, awaiting its demise. Which leads us into showing a new thing you can do that honestly surprised me wasn't in Splatoon 2. You can now throw your eggs to teammates. So many times I would find myself in a risky spot just for an egg, only to be killed because I need to turn back to return it. Now there's no more of that. You can risk your life for the eggs and chuck them to safety. Another thing is shown for a slight bit of time that interests me, is you can actually see a player using the squid roll through a stinger's attack. Does this mean the squid roll will provide a bit of invincibility when you use it? It's entirely possible that they actually just roll over the laser, as for a bit you can actually see that the laser moves when they roll, but who knows. Then it goes on to show a bit more of the game ending and the team completing the mission, and then an ominous cut to a gigantic salmonid boy before ending. From what we see, I'm left with more questions, which is probably what they're aiming to do anyway. First off, how many bosses are there? Those two that they only show off, in my opinion, don't seem very difficult. They seem like they're there to more catch new players off guard, but that's also them at a lower level. Those same bosses at a higher level may even leave me frustrated, so we'll have to wait. And secondly, will it still have a round limit? My biggest gripe with Salmon Run is that it's just not endless. Games with these sorts of modes almost always have an endless version of them. You go until you can't possibly win. Salmon Run having a defined amount of rounds made it less enjoyable for me, honestly. So if Salmon Run in Splatoon 3 is either endless or has an endless mode, then I'll be satisfied. So with all we have seen, will Salmon Run be better in Splatoon 3? I think it's entirely possible. Being able to just throw your eggs is a big deal and will certainly make taking on higher levels more doable and exciting. You'd be able to go for more risky plays that would have cost your life in Splatoon 2, and along with the new bosses, two of which we have seen, and there's probably even more to come, the game will only get more and more hectic the longer it goes on, especially if they decide to make it endless. That's what I'd like to see them the most, the highest level being played endlessly. That would excite me a lot. And with the map we've seen them playing on in this video, it'll be interesting to see where the tide will come up and down to, only adding to how hectic it could possibly be. So what are your guys' thoughts on the Splatoon 3 Salmon Run update? Do you think it looks good? What other changes would you like to see them make to it? What do you think of the new bosses? I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts on what they saw. So with that, this concludes this short video. So I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.